Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks a lot for downloading this. And if I could be so bold as to ask a quick favor, I don't do this often, but if you have a second, do you mind, if you're an Apple Podcast consumer or you're a Spotify user, could you leave a written review and a 5-star review of this podcast? It helps others learn about it and spread the good word. We're so appreciative. And thanks a lot for choosing this show, as you do each and every day, consistently making this one of the top-performing news commentary podcasts out there in the universe of all there is to choose from these days. And I thank our sponsor now for years, John Ruhlman, who has been basically the principal sponsor of this show and has helped so many of you in this audience, most importantly. The reason I love doing business with John and the team at U.S. Medical Plan is because they really help people in this audience. I'm not just talking about people that I've heard from through email. I'm talking about people in my own life. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, my own parents. I sent my parents to John and his team when they were looking for supplemental insurance with their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. That's my senior parents, all right? I have a personal friend who had a daughter with some special health needs. He was spending tons of money a month on private health insurance for them. John got him a better plan, saved him $1,000 a month. I have colleagues that have saved hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a small business owner and you supply insurance for your employees, that's a generous thing to do. Is it really expensive? And you're thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore? Wait. Call John. Reach out to his team. They shop with 100 different private health insurers all over the country. If you're an Obamacare user, that is not getting any cheaper this year. I can already tell you it's going to go up, up, up. There are private health insurance companies out there that have much lower rates than you think and cover everything that you need. I know people assume if it's cheaper, it means less coverage. Not necessarily. Or it may be that you have the best coverage going, but you're not going to know until you reach out. Please turn to the team at usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or give them a call today, 877-410-4321. That's 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Hey, good to be with you today, folks. Welcome in on this beautiful Wednesday morning. As the shutdown continues, President Trump actually hosting senators at the White House yesterday. We're looking at Philadelphia this morning. And, we have a couple of senators, actually. We have Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick on the show today. We're going to talk with Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, scheduled to be here today, which will be pretty interesting given that they were just at the White House yesterday and President Trump basically told them, hold your ground. And he told Chuck Schumer, I'm happy to discuss Obamacare with you. Open the government. Get the bills paid so we can start having a discussion. You know, in the history of political standoffs, there are very few events that actually compare to this shutdown, least of all the current one. And I think here again, President Trump is acting as the master of ceremonies at a friar's roast. It is just... He branded this right out of the gate as the Schumer shutdown, which was brilliant. He understands leverage like nobody's business, and he seized on this financial deadlock. Not his peril, but it's a pulpit for him. And his humor is his most effective weapon here. Now, past Republican leaders who've backed down because of media scrutiny or moral posturing by Democrats or whatever, Trump is absolutely wrapping his loving arms around this. And he's making for great entertainment, actually, from the sombreros to the air bombing of the manure. Major media outlets are constantly trying to bring forward, the heart-wrenching stories and scenes of furloughed government workers claiming paychecks are at risk, and it's all because of Republicans, but that's not working this time. Most Americans now totally understand why this is happening. It's happening because Democrats want to fund illegal alien health insurance. That's why. That's it. They want to pass a clean CR the Republicans do. President Trump and the Republicans do. And Trump is handling this differently. As I've said, he is no ordinary leader here. They are systemically countering the Democrats every time they try to pivot on a new message. They've proposed the straightforward continuing resolution to prevent chaos. Chuck Schumer's caucus is just trying to complicate it with all kinds of provisions, healthcare being one of them. They're now pretending that health insurance and the rates are about to go up because President Trump won't negotiate with them. Trump says, I'll talk about it. Let's make sure everybody gets paid first. And I think Democrats have just walked right into a trap. I mean, we played for you some of the numbers on this, the vaudevillian yesterday. Harry Enton, who said, Trump's not taking on water with this thing at all. In fact, Jake Tapper over at CNN again, saying directly to Catherine Clark, a Democrat from Massachusetts, you know, this is going the same way it's always gone, and the Republicans want to open the government. You guys don't. Give me number 98 here, Paul, as proof.
You're blaming the Republicans for the shutdown, but in point of fact, it's the Democrats in the Senate who are refusing to vote for the clean continuing resolution to fund the government for 7 weeks. I mean, that just as a point of fact, the way that we have always covered shutdowns is that the party that is not voting for the CR, the continuing resolution to fund the government, is the party that is blocking the government funding and is responsible for the shutdown. That's how we did it the last time in 2018, 2019. That's the time we did before that during the Obama administration. I mean, it's your party that is refusing in the Senate that is refusing to vote for the continuing resolution.
Right. And, of course, again, with the benefit of humor, Trump is still smiling and having fun with this, and it's cutting. It's working. He invited these senators yesterday to the Rose Garden. Give me number 6. He's having fun with this.
We have Darth Vader. You know Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader is a man who, I think he's sitting right. Is that Darth? Stand up, please, Darth Vader. Stand up. Does everybody know? They call him Darth Vader. I call him a fine man. But he's cutting Democrat priorities, and they're never going to get him back. And they've caused us, and they've really allowed us to do it. And by the way, thank you. You're doing a great job, I have to tell you. So really a great job. Because many of the things that they're cutting, like the New York project, $20 billion we're cutting it, they're not going to get it back. I mean, they're not going to get a lot of things back. They may not get it back. Maybe we'll talk to them about it. But they're losing all the things that they wanted. But many of the things that they wanted are things that we don't want. Things that are just so bad for our country. And we're cutting those things out. So while they thought they were doing maybe bad, maybe indirectly they're doing good. The cynical comment that they've made all over the place, and all of their cynical remarks proves beyond all doubt that Schumer is a calculating political partisan. But we knew that. But he's somebody that's in deep trouble. He's losing in all of the polls. He's even losing to AOC plus 3.
He's having fun with it. He's not only regained the presidency last year, but he's also taken control of the House and the Senate. He secured the Electoral College, and he achieved a decisive majority in the popular vote. His victory last year was a clear mandate for fiscal responsibility, for border security, for reassessment of an overly expansive federal government. And he's doing all of that, and he's ticking off the list. You keep the government shut, I'm going to keep cutting your Democrat pet programs. And the people are not mad at him about it, certainly. Young people specifically don't mind if this continues, because they're all out there struggling to get ahead right now. Senate Democrats, led for now by this hapless Chuck Schumer, they're opting for obstruction. Filibustering for like an 11th, 12th vote or something. Resolutions that have been brought again and again and again, they just block it. All in favor of $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion roughly in spending that includes benefits for illegal aliens. That's what they want to include in this. So as this shutdown persists and you start to hear the stories of the human toll, undoubtedly you will, hundreds of thousands of federal employees being furloughed, it'll start impacting air traffic control in time. These are people that ensure our safety in the sky. Military families, for now, are being paid, may not soon. The WIC program, we talked about it. Trump's using tariff money. That'll dry up eventually. So Trump's trying to creatively keep this stuff running, even though Democrats don't want to for politics. But this is not simply the result of divided government. Jake Tapper even said so. This is a deliberate act of obstruction. Jake Tapper said that. Mike Johnson pointed it out. We played that for you yesterday. This all stems from the Democrats' submission, of course, to the radical faction that is coming at them and jeopardizing the very families they claim to help. There's a disturbing reversal of priorities in the Democrat Party. That's what this shutdown is about. Pushing for the reinstatement of enhanced Medicaid reimbursement, giving hospitals favorable rates for treating illegals, often exceeding those rates for American citizens, including expectant mothers, and refusing to compromise on border security. Look, all of these are 80-20 issues. This is why President Trump won last year. He won on a mandate. The Republicans control Congress because of a mandate. Giving taxpayer money to illegals is an easy-to-understand misappropriation of public resources, and that's exactly what Democrats are doing. They're diverting funds from services for veterans, military budgets, airport security, all to support illegal aliens. Now, Republicans are simply saying, again, straightforward funding measures just to get this thing going, to move the ball forward. Let's just keep funding the government as is till the middle of November, and we'll keep talking. We're not asking for less. We're not asking for more. Let's just keep rubber stamping the spending. Not a great option, but it's not changing anything. The public has been clear about this, though. And legacy media, I'll give Tapper credit. He didn't obscure it this time, and they may. But the direct communication from Trump is assigning blame where it belongs. A Democrat minority that lacks leverage and has an abundance of arrogance. You know, this past weekend was no kings. The only thing Trump is the king of is leverage, and he uses these sorts of things to his advantage. Sweeping permanent layoffs of unnecessary government positions, rejecting retroactive pay wherever it's possible, redirecting tariff revenue when he can. That's what he was doing just yesterday in the Rose Garden. We played the clip. He's having fun with Darth Vader, Russ Vogt. Trump and Republicans won a mandate last year that still matters. And so while Democrats continue with this childish game and their deflection with the stupid no kings rallies of the weekend, or making enemies of ICE, attacking them again, we just saw that out about L.A. yesterday, keeping the government shut down, average Americans know what's going on. This version of Trump 2.0 isn't the least bit swayed in finishing what he started. And he's doing it with good cheer, which really frosts them. Said that to Scott Jennings in L.A. over the weekend. What really makes people mad, what drives people like Keith Olbermann on X to seethe and actually physically threaten guys like Scott Jennings, what makes people most mad at Trump, the reason they writhe and hiss, is because they know the American people are with them, they know the facts are on their side, and they smile with good humor and continue to make their case. And that really makes the Democrats more angry and, frankly, deadly than ever before. But the American people aren't swayed. More in a minute. Good to be with you, folks. Good morning, Dallas. Thanks for listening on The Answer, AM 660. Thanks for listening on your favorite radio station today, wherever you happen to be. Our phone number is 855-STIGAL. If you want to get in here, what's Robert up to in Sarasota, Florida this morning? Hey, Robert, I'm glad you called. Thanks a lot for checking in. Hi.
Yeah, Chris. Hey, real quick, I just don't think Americans understand that when you and I go to the emergency room and we sit down, the first thing they want is identification. So when you walk out of that ER or that hospital visit or your doctor's office, you got a tattoo on your back of any or all bills that are you're responsible for. When an illegal goes and does that same thing, they leave out of there with whatever name and address they gave, and they got a clean slate. And I know this firsthand because I buy investment properties, and I bought one last year where there were 9 illegals living in the house. It was a shanty. It was in horrible shape. It's an opportunity for me. So the past year, my wife and I have been checking the mailbox, and we're up to 22 individuals that are getting lawyer notices, medical bills, hospital bills to that address. So if people think that these people aren't doing things deliberately, they understand how to manipulate the rules. Well, this is happening at a catastrophic rate, and the American people are tired of it, and I'm glad Trump is putting a halt to that money, because that money goes to hospitals and institutions to pay the bills that these people are never going to pay. While me and you get our wages garnished, we get liens, we get our credit affected. It's really a bad problem, and I think most of the sign holders, the Justice for Lindsay lunatics, they don't understand, and most Americans don't. But it's a real problem. It ranks up there number one, in my opinion.
Robert, you bring up something that I hadn't really thought of, to be perfectly honest with you. Do you think it possible that the Republicans knew this is exactly where this debate would head, and that the Democrats would bring this subject up and cause a focus on Obamacare again, and the fact that taxpayers are subsidizing so much of it, if not entirely, to keep it afloat? Do you think they wanted this debate, I guess is my question?
I think they do. It's just like Planned Parenthood or USAID. It's a funneling mechanism for your cash, and this is a big one. And I do think they're leading the sheep to slaughter. It's like pigeon to the cat. These dum-dums are doing – they're playing right into Trump's agenda, and it's really comforting to me.
Well, listen, Robert, we're going to continue to watch it, of course, and see if that's true. I'll ask Senator Johnson today if this is part of a plan, if they intended to have this discussion, because I'll be honest with you, when this started, the only thing Republicans were talking about was funding illegal alien health insurance, subsidies for illegal alien health insurance, which was easy enough to understand. But then we started to learn that very, very well-off people, and we're talking about people, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, are in some cases getting free Obamacare subsidized by you and me. So now the discussion has broadened out. That's why we're bringing in an expert today to talk about Obamacare. I mean, Fast Eddie, we haven't done this in quite a while. I'm beginning to think, given what Robert just said, I sort of had a light bulb moment where it occurred to me that maybe Democrats are doing exactly what Republicans want, bringing this thing back up. They didn't do it, actually. They didn't use the word Obamacare. Democrats did.
That's true. No, that's a very good point, because if anything, this needs to be looked at, and Republicans up to this point haven't addressed it well at all. And they've been horrible messengers on this, other than Trump.
So now they're making Democrats explain it. And what happens in politics when you're explaining, Fast Eddie?
You're losing.
You're losing. Jon Stewart with Bernie Sanders talking health care. Take a listen to number 94 here.
But again, this gets to the Democratic solutions have never been to directly provide. It's always been a subsidy to a middleman. But what happens is when the government promises endless funds to insurance companies or private universities without any cost controls, and Trump seems to understand this, prices rise far beyond the rate of inflation. And we've seen it in tuition, and we've seen it in pharmaceutical, and we've seen it in healthcare. So,
okay, that's enough. Folks, I mean, I'd like to report a murder. Hello, police. That was Jon Stewart tripping over a market answer. Accidentally or intentionally, I don't know which, but that was him just explaining the free market. You subsidize something, you get more of it, it grows exponentially, there are no cost controls. Eureka! I got to spend some more time on this. Hang on. There's the ticket in Cincinnati. That's the ticket. Yeah, see? 1450 a.m. in Cincy. Glad to have you. Headquarters of my buddy John Ruhlman, by the way, who is absolutely in the middle of all of this insurance stuff, exactly who you should call. I've had more people reach out to me in the last 2 months asking me about John, and I am thrilled. Yes, he is a sponsor, but he is more than that. He's a friend, and I have sent my parents to them and friends to him. I am so glad to have a resource like John in the middle of this Obamacare fight that we're clearly about to have. In fact, we're going to spend some time focused on it today because I think it's important. If Democrats want to revisit the disaster that we knew was coming, almost 20 years ago? We warned and warned and warned this was not going to be the answer, and clearly it's not, as Democrats now want to continue to subsidize it to the tune of $1.5 trillion, and they're willing to shut down the entirety of the government over it. The Republicans said, we'll talk about it, but not until we keep the government open. They don't want. The Republicans are ready to debate it and discuss it. Democrats just want to use the government shutdown as a point of leverage to force Republicans to continue to rubber stamp subsidized spending of illegal alien health insurance. It's wrong, as you understand, and the American people understand it's wrong too. But I have to tell you, the most unlikely place, Bernie Sanders on The Daily Show is making the case for us. If you missed this, this is worth hearing again. Jon Stewart with Bernie Sanders talking about the way the market works when the government underwrites, subsidizes, gives away something. What happens? It only makes it more expensive. Now, where was Jon Stewart, do you think, 20 years ago on The Daily Show, Ed? You suppose Jon Stewart was giving his viewers, his young, then millennial viewers, an abject lesson on market-based economies and how if you subsidize something, it makes it worse. You don't actually improve the cost of anything. Do you think he was teaching that 20 years ago when they were trying to ram Obamacare home in a snowstorm?
Probably not, because I remember I caught the very end of the Jon Stewart thing. So I graduated in 2008. So I missed the college response. But if I had to guess, back then, Jon Stewart was probably crying on air about how people won't have health care and all this stuff. If I had to guess, he would be singing a very different tune then.
I bet you're right. In fact, I think it would be fun if we had the inclination, we could probably go through the annals of Daily Show history and find him talking about Obamacare when we were debating it. And I bet it would be delightful to put it up against this. Give me number 94 again, if you would, please, Paul. This is really quite something. Quite the heel turn.
But again, this gets to the Democratic solutions have never been to directly provide. It's always been a subsidy to a middleman. But what happens is when the government promises endless funds to insurance companies or private universities without any cost controls, and Trump seems to understand this, prices rise far beyond the rate of inflation. And we've seen it in tuition, and we've seen it in pharmaceutical, and we've seen it in healthcare. So my question is, will Democrats recognize the poison pill that they've often placed into well-intentioned policy?
Right. What they end up doing.
So I don't even care what Bernie Sanders' answer is, which is some version of, the government will run everything. We know. That's always Bernie's answer. The government makes it free. It's the Zoran Mandami thing in New York. Everything is free. Everything is free. We pay for everything. Nobody has anything to pay for anymore. We pay for everything, which means, of course, the taxpayers pay for everything. And does that make it better? See, Jon Stewart's answer, unfortunately, his explanation is ironclad. I have absolutely no problem with the way he just explained that. It's his solution, and it's Bernie's solution. And their solution is, let's just do away with the private sector. Let's let the government run it all. Now, that doesn't make any more damn sense, but this continues, incidentally. Listen to number 95 here. They continue this conversation, and they actually come to agreement that Democrats are the ones that own this shutdown over subsidies of Obamacare.
What Democrats find themselves in a place is we've shut down the government to protect subsidies for an insurance marketplace that funnels $800 billion a year into the pockets of all these insurance companies. Have Democrats box themselves into a corner fighting for a system that ultimately, to get the thing that you want, that I think the American people want, they're going to have to abandon.
Yes. Look, here's where we are.
All right, that's enough. I mean, I don't care. Bernie Sanders just agreed to the premise of the question. And that now leads me to conclude, perhaps it was Trump, perhaps it was Republicans, perhaps it was a combination of both. Did they walk the Democrats into this trap? Jon Stewart and Bernie Sanders are admitting right there on a show that is for leftists, the Democrats have boxed themselves into this debate. They want to continue to subsidize something that has not gotten more affordable. And now they're trying to defend something that they have made demonstrably worse through force. By hook or by crook, they implemented Obamacare. I will never, ever forget, as long as I live, that fight over Obamacare. That treacherous Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, who flipped and flopped and flipped again, depending on whichever party made him feel good at the time, to help Democrats eke out a victory for Obamacare in the Senate. In a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. I'll never forget it. It was nothing anybody wanted. It's the reason Josh Hawley is a senator in Missouri now, and not that loathsome Claire McCaskill. Now she's doing chat shows on MSNBC with the Nerd Prom King and Queen. They knew this was not going to better anybody. Now, I'll agree. Is it lining the pockets of insurance companies? You bet it is. It's certainly not making your medicine any cheaper. It's incentivizing hospitals to just keep billing and billing and billing and billing. So I'm with Stewart here, but here's the problem. Of course, Stewart and Bernie Sanders, their answer is, let's do away with private health insurance. And I will tell you, you should know by now, and I know smart people do because this audience is made up of smart people, you do away with the private sector and you have a government administrating your health care needs, that is a road to hell. You do not want anything to do with that. See Europe for more. I've heard endless stories of people in Europe who need a heart transplant, or they need a lung transplant, or they need bypass surgery, or they need some kind of critical surgery. And they're on a waiting list. You know why? Because the government doles out the medicine. And the government has to prioritize 330 million people. Fast Eddie, how do you feel about the government and where they'll prioritize you in a nation of 330 million Americans if you need an emergency surgery? How do you feel about where you'll fall on the list of American priorities, considering Trump won't be the president forever and Republicans may not be in control forever? Who the hell knows? We've had Health and Human Services Secretary Kitty Cat Kathleen Sebelius, who famously once said, we have to decide some people live and some people die over a lung transplant at the Children's Hospital in Pennsylvania years ago. I'll never forget that story. So how do you feel about how would you fare in an emergency if a Democrat administration had to decide who gets treatment first?
I wouldn't fare well at all. One, I'm a white Catholic male, so that's bad. But also, Chris, exactly right. I'm unvaccinated, so they already wanted to up my premiums and prevent me from going to the hospital in the first place during COVID because of the...
Hey, but no kings.
But no kings.
No kings. No kings, right?
Right. So I don't like my chances, is what I'm talking about, Chris.
This is exactly the problem. And this is what you have to remember when you start to hear this siren song of, the insurance companies are an outrage. You know what would be far worse? We can have a healthy discussion about the private sector and health insurance. But the start is to get the government out of it entirely. If the government weren't cutting endless subsidy checks to insurance companies with your money and mine, insurance companies would be forced to bring themselves to heel. Insurance companies would then be forced to bring pressure on doctors and hospitals to be more cost-effective in the way they do business. There is no incentive right now for anybody to just stop billing everybody for everything all the time. Do you get that? You do get that. There is no incentive for anyone to think about medicine except for give it, gimme. Whatever I want, whatever you think I need, just gimme, give it. I don't care. I don't care whether you think it's justifiable. I don't care how expensive it is. I don't care what it costs. Just give it, gimme. We don't consume anything else in this country like we do medicine. Pharmaceutical products, surgeries, treatments, doctor's visits, and quite frankly, a great deal of it is not entirely necessary. Now, again, that's a decision made between you and your doctor. I'm not suggesting that you should stop going to the doctor. I'm saying I think people go to the doctor too much. My parents relish going to the doctor. It's like a thing. You know, Nate Bargatze does some stand-up on this now. It's like it's almost recreational to go get surgery from my parent. Doctor says, "Oh, I think we need to fix that thing in there." They're like, "Right on. I got a surgery scheduled." That's what they do in retirement now. Schedule surgeries. That's going on with the boomer generation in mass. They're having surgeries right and left, whether they need them or not, or there are other alternatives. Every time somebody gets a sniffle, off to the doctor. Doctor says, well, you need this, you need that, and by the way, this was a $1,000 bill to sit down and talk with you about it. And insurance companies rubber stamp, okay, we'll pay it, whatever. Why? Here come the government money. That's a broken system. Stewart is right. But their answer is, let the government take over all medicine, get rid of private health insurance. Let government run the hospitals. Let government decide who gets the medicine. And you should well know, as Eddie just brilliantly articulated, depending on who's in office is how you're going to be treated medically in the future. Depending on who's in office. You may not even remember that story. The reason I remember it so well is because it actually happened in Philadelphia, where I've been doing a local show for a number of years. There was a young girl, I believe 12 years of age. She was on a waiting list for a lung transplant that would save her life. But next in line was a man who was also going to die without the lung transplant. And I don't remember all the specifics, but I remember bottom line, it came down to this 12-year-old girl and some kind of bureaucratic reason she couldn't qualify for it. And they were going to give it to the guy, and the girl was going to die. At that time, Senator Pat Toomey got involved, but Kathleen Sebelius, under oath in a congressional testimony, said, hey, sometimes we got to decide who lives, and sometimes we got to decide who dies. And I thought, my God, that's it. That's it. That's where we'd be. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Remember, no kings, no kings, no kings. There's nothing more royal than somebody sitting on high deciding whether your daughter lives or dies. Consider that as we have this discussion about Obamacare. They're not even awake out there yet in San Diego. Some of you are. Up early, working out. Those of you that can't sleep. Those of you who are getting on the road now just to beat the 2-hour traffic that you have to sit in. Thanks for listening on 1170 AM The Answer out there. Thanks for watching on the Salem News Channel. Beautiful shot before the sun even comes up at a pier out there in San Diego. Thrilled to have you along. You know, Vice President Vance is in Israel as we speak, continuing his tour of the Holy Land, overseeing implementation of President Trump's peace plan. And in Jerusalem, the vice president was asked about the foot-dragging by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Here's what he had to say.
Our warning to Hamas is very straightforward. The terms of the 20-point plan that the president put out there is very clear. It's supported not just by Israel, but by all of our Gulf Arab friends. It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the president of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
So, even with the peace plan in place, getting it fully implemented is going to take some time. And at the top of my homepage right now, if you go to chrisstigall.com, there is a bright red banner reading, Israel still needs help. We have partnered with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews to let them know that this audience, this show, stands with Israel. And you can tell the people of Israel you're with them by supporting the fellowship and the work they do today. Again, that banner posted at the top of the homepage, chrisstigall.com, where make any gift you can. It's a generous gift of any amount that you can give. Thank you in advance for supporting the work of IFCJ. You can also call them today and make your gift over the phone if you'd prefer at 800-982-8811. That's 800-982-8811. And thanks to a generous fellowship supporter, for a limited time, anything you give, your gift automatically doubles. You give $5, this donor's going to make it 10. So if you want to help the good people at IFCJ and really make an impact, whatever you give will double today by calling 800-982-8811 or go to chrisstigall.com and click on that Israel Needs Help banner at the top of my homepage. And I appreciate you in advance. All right, let's head back to the phones in Cleveland. It's Rick. Hey, Rick, glad you called. Good morning. Welcome in.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
I'm great, my friend. How are you today?
Good. So, interesting comments you were making regarding the medical policies and life and death. The Democrats preach against no kings, of which we all agree with. However, they really want to become godlike. That's my comment.
That's beautifully said. Yeah, they don't. As I mentioned on social media, and thank you, Rick, for the call. That's a great point. They don't mind kings. They just want their kings. And to your point, they love playing God. There's just nothing more thrilling than deciding who lives and who dies. Kathleen Sebelius gave up the ghost in that statement. It will haunt me and hang with me for the rest of my life. Sometimes people live, sometimes people die. We got to make those decisions. Be a nice life you've got there. Shame if something happened to you. Of course, Kathleen Sebelius, the Health and Human Service Secretary under Obama, she was also the queen of abortion in the state she governed, Kansas. Limitless. You wouldn't think that, but to this day, thanks to her, in the state of Kansas, limitless abortion. Do you know that? I don't care where you live, Massachusetts, New York, pick the most liberal state of the union, California, doesn't matter. Limitless abortion in the state of Kansas. Kansas. Thanks to that woman. Democrats get a thrill off of the death of people. They love the idea. They've been a death cult for years and years and years. Controlling who lives and controlling who dies. It's everything to Democrats. That's why abortion matters to them so much. The extermination of life gives them a thrill. That's why they celebrate this guy who shot the health insurance CEO in the back. It's thrilling to murder people with whom you disagree or who are considered inconvenient. They'd love to rid us of elderly, infirm people. They want to rid us of children in the womb that they don't think they can afford or want. They'd love to rid themselves of you if they don't agree with you politically. They'd love to force you to take medicines you may or may not want if they don't agree with your speech. Democrats are a death cult, and you're exactly right. It's a great point, Rick. Maybe they don't want kings, but they're happy to play God. By the way, these people managing your finances, they can't manage campaign finances. Do you know that they are still paying off Cacklebritch's presidential campaign? That woman raised over $1 billion with a B dollars for her presidential campaign. And she's in debt that they're still trying to pay off. This from Axios today. The Democrat National Committee paid $1.6 million in September to cover more debt from Cacklebritch's, Kamala Harris's campaign, bringing the DNC's total payout to the campaign to more than $20 million and counting. The DNC trying to rebuild in the aftermath of 2024, being hampered by debts the party racked up last year. Harris spent an unprecedented $1.5 billion in 107 days, and invoices continue to roll into the DNC nearly a year later. They only had about $12 million cash on hand by the end of September as the party made investments in campaigns in Virginia and New Jersey. The DNC usually covers debts after presidential campaigns, but obligations can make it harder for the losing party to rebuild. Democrat officials aren't sure how much more outstanding debt there is to come from the Harris campaign. The DNC is on the hook for more than $20 million in debt after Barack Obama's re-election in 2012. And even with Obama helping to raise funds in the years afterward, the DNC didn't fully pay off the debt till 2015. They're in charge of government spending. You want these people in charge of your medicine and medical decisions? I don't think so. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, Chris, I can't begin to express how proud I am, obviously, of having my daughter there. Also, Dr. Geddes is just a wonderful addition to our practice. He is a classmate of my daughter Alexa's at Temple Dental School, and I have known Jared for about 7 years now. Getting to know Jared over the years, it was my wife Debbie and my daughter Emily who kept telling me, "You have to hire Jared. You have to hire Jared. He's going to be a superstar." Jared went off to USC, did a 1-year residency after his year at Temple, and he came back and he worked for about a year in practice in New Jersey. And after, again, my wife and daughter beating my brains in, I got the message and I hired Jared, and he's been a great addition to Williamsburg Dental.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Great to be with you, folks. Sun coming up on a shut-down Capitol Dome this morning. If you're looking on the Salem News Channel, listening on AM 570 and our hundreds of affiliates all over the country, welcome in on this midweek edition of the Stigall Show. Of course, I know it's Wednesday because Yes, your humble host still takes out his own garbage. I give the Help Wednesdays off. And it's trash day at the house. That's how I know. Our telephone number is 855-STIGAL if you'd like to get in here. I can't stop playing this, and so I'm very, very sorry to belabor it, but I just quickly, before we go to our guest, could you give me Jon Stewart one more time? I just want Jon Stewart. I don't need Bernie's answer. Give me number 94, their discussion this week of effectively subsidizing health insurance, Obamacare. Listen.
But again, this gets to the Democratic solutions have never been to directly provides. It's always been a subsidy to a middleman. But what happens is when the government promises endless funds to insurance companies or private universities without any cost controls, and Trump seems to understand this, prices rise far beyond the rate of inflation. And we've seen it in tuition, and we've seen it in pharmaceutical, and we've seen it in healthcare. So my question is, will Democrats recognize the poison pill that they've often placed into well-intentioned policy?
Right. Look, hallelujah is all I have to say to that. Brittany Madni joins us. She's the Executive Vice President of the Economic Policy Innovation Center. EPIC4America.org is the website, EPIC, EPIC4America.org. Miss Madni, I welcome you in. Again, his solution, Bernie's solution, I don't agree with their outcome and their solution, but I've never heard such honesty. Good morning.
Good morning. It's pretty wild to hear them say it straight out, but the fact of the matter is it's simply not a solution. What we're hearing is that the Democrat Party is willing to shut down the government in order to funnel hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars straight to insurers, not to patients.
And it doesn't control the costs. And I feel like a broken record for 20 years. I mean, when this was a thing, and it drives me nuts because I feel like I'm saying the same thing I've been saying for 20 years. When you subsidize something, when the government just cuts checks, it doesn't make the cost of anything less, Brittany.
No, it makes it more. We've seen this time and time again. Chris, it's the exact same story with healthcare that it is with student loans. Every time we send out more student loans, the cost of higher education goes up. Why? Because the universities know that they're going to get that amount from the government no matter what. The same thing with broadband. When the government sent out a ton of broadband money to supposedly help make it more affordable, what did it do? It spiked rates. That's why your internet bill is higher now than it was before COVID. And with healthcare, there are real lives on the line. So not only are we seeing a situation where they're funneling money, claiming to help people to insurance providers, and instead it's actually making the situation worse, but we're also seeing the insurers take advantage of this. So we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to make these the expiring COVID tax credits permanent. Would cost us $410 billion more. And that's just the COVID credit. That's not even the underlying Obamacare credit that system is built on. $410 billion. That's a massive amount. You'd think for that money that at least you'd be able to go to the doctor and get what you need. But no, insurance companies are still denying a third of the claims.
Yeah. And the private sector can solve it if government butts out of it entirely. You make things more competitive if government gets out of the business of medicine altogether. Of course, Democrats' plan is to just take it over entirely. They've always wanted to bust the health insurance companies, ultimately. Bust them. Hospitals, they don't like a for-profit model in medicine. They believe government should control and dispense all medicine. And nobody wants anything to do with that.
That's right. It's not just that they don't want a for-profit situation in medicine. They don't want for-profit in anything. They'd rather have full government control. What we're seeing is a movement towards socialism. And in fact, in some cases, they're even telling us that. Look at Madni in New York. But in this scenario, part of the reason that healthcare is so expensive is because Obamacare is a substantive problem underlying the entire system. So They knew that when they were building these Obamacare plans, that they weren't going to be popular, they were going to be expensive, and they were going to force healthcare that people didn't want, coverage people didn't want, on millions of Americans. So what would normal Americans do? They'd go pick another type of plan instead of getting on Obamacare. Well, they couldn't have that, so they took away all the other types of plans.
Right. And so, I know I sound like I'm pitching, and I don't mean to sound that way, but I mean, I have a great friend and sponsor. He's been with me for years. He's a health insurance broker, and he shops about 100 different private health insurers all over the country. I've sent my family and friends to him, and the private sector is still besting Obamacare in most cases, Brittany. That's still a fact if you shop it and buy it on your own.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. We're talking a lot about Americans on Obamacare. That's about 24 million people. But what we're missing in that conversation is that 160 to 170 million people, way more, are still getting employer-sponsored insurance. They're still in the sort of typical market that you're expecting pre-Obamacare. And that just goes to show you that people who have the option to switch have chosen not to. They don't want that. And the reason is coverage does not equal care. It doesn't matter how many people have an insurance card if they can't actually pay the copays and meet the deductibles. Their premiums are through the roof. Their networks are narrow. They can't see the doctors they want. This is a problem that Republicans have been talking about for 15 years.
Brittany Madni with us. She's the Executive Vice President of the Economic Policy Innovation Center, EPIC, EPIC, epicforamerica.org. Here's what we also know. You go into any medical facility and offer them cash for the same service insurance would pay, and you will pay sometimes half or less. I mean, pennies on the dollar sometimes for what they would bill insurance. It's striking. But the same is true, by the way, the same is true for car insurance. You get in a little fender bender. You go pay the guy to fix your bumper cash instead of file an insurance claim. It's amazing how much less expensive that event becomes if you pay cash instead of involve your insurance. The exact same thing is true for medicine, Brittany.
Yeah, it is, except it's even more frustrating than that, Chris, because is there any other type of insurance that you buy with the full intent of using that you hope to use? No. Right. You buy car insurance hoping you never have to get it into a crash and use it. You buy flood insurance hoping that you never end up in a scenario where a hurricane or other floodwaters are taking out your house and you have to use it. The same goes for every other type of insurance except for health insurance. You buy health insurance with the full intent of using it. You know that you're paying these obscene premiums, so you are pushed into a situation where you have to go to the doctor. You know you were going to go to the doctor anyway. You pay and pay and pay your out-of-pocket costs. You may still never reach your deductible under these plans, and yet the entire system is treated as though it's a way for the government to control people's lives, knowing that there's a necessity there. It's very different from any other type of insurance for that one reason.
Do you guys at EPIC, again, the Economic Policy Innovation Center, are you optimistic, or is the cake baked? It's just too intertwined in our system now. Can Obamacare be undone? I started to kind of come to the realization this morning Republicans might actually relish this debate. And maybe, as Jon Stewart said, Democrats have sort of boxed themselves in. I don't know if it was a happy accident or intentional, but we're here having this discussion again. Can this be undone?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I would say is it's unlikely to get a full repeal and replace. Unfortunately, we tried that and it didn't come to fruition in 2017. But what is likely is a series of changes around the edges of Obamacare. And I think those could make a real impact on the American people. For example, we talked a little bit about there not being any competition in the marketplace because Obamacare had to prioritize that system. Otherwise, people would go elsewhere. If you could just have a bunch of other options allowed back into the system, for example, greater access to something called an HSA, a health savings account. If you could have more short-term limited duration insurance plans, if you could have better access to catastrophic plans, all of these different plans that meet different standards for what people actually want and need, then yeah, I think that does relieve a lot of the pressure. For example, right now, under Obamacare, all qualified health plans have to have something called 10 essential health benefits. Chris, I don't think that you're likely to get pregnant anytime soon. Now, but I think that it's a little outrageous that Obamacare requires a man to have full pregnancy coverage, not for his wife, not for his dependents, for him. Well, that makes your plan unnecessarily expensive. Let's get rid of that.
And Brittany, this is the kind of stuff I think Democrats have boxed themselves into discussing and debating, ensuring illegal aliens, covering men for pregnancy. I'm all good with this debate. Thrilled that we're here. Nice to make your acquaintance. I hope you'll come back very soon.
Absolutely. Back at you, Chris.
Brittany Madni, Executive Vice President of the Economic Policy Innovation Center. Back in a minute. Good to be with you. Salem News Channel app. Do you have it? I got a new edition of the Harumph Society coming out today. Are you a Harumpher yet? We're coming up on our, I think, 4-year anniversary. 3. Okay. We're having an anniversary here soon. We launch it, I think, at the end of October. And I can't thank you Harumphers enough, particularly you founders. You founders have been the backbone of the whole darn thing. And I love chatting with you offline from time to time whenever founders send a note. Great to hear from you as always. Thank you so much. As we rebuild at chrisstigall.com, we re-coordinate some things. Got the Founders Wall we're going to be putting up soon. We like to honor all the founders of the show with their name etched for all eternity online. So if you haven't joined us yet, there is still plenty of time to do so. Always come aboard. We'd love to have you. It's a great conversation. chrisstigall.com to get signed up. That's where the Harumph Society is found. It's a Substack. And if you don't know much about Substack, I think you'll really enjoy it. I have enjoyed being there. I've not seen any censorship whatsoever. So far, Substack has been pure as the wind-driven snow. I can't say for sure. I know people like our friend Naomi. She said that she worries about the payment structure behind Substack, but some people just write and blog there for their own amusement or interests, and there's it's truly a free speech platform. At least it seems to be for now. It's where Bari Weiss made a name for herself, and she now runs CBS News. This is amazing. From our friends at Town Hall, Jeff Charles wrote this. Bari Weiss seems to have confused some of the folks at CBS News after being hired as its new editor-in-chief. The New York Times reporting that Weiss stunned members of senior staff of the show 60 minutes. She called them all into a room. Did you hear this one, Fast Eddie? Bari Weiss, she calls all of 60 Minutes into a big conference. Hey, gang, huddle up. New boss, want to talk to you for a minute. And I guess the first question out of her mouth to them was, why do you think the country thinks you're biased?
I did hear that.
Whoa! Why do you think the country thinks you're biased? And according to Jeff Charles here at Town Hall, the inquiry was met with stunned awkwardness. According to 3 people who recounted details of the private session in Midtown Manhattan, the staff of 60 Minutes, the nation's most-watched news program, view their coverage as firmly nonpartisan and reject the criticism. The exchange added to the uncertainty that has settled over CBS News as hundreds of producers, anchors, and correspondents take stock of their institution's unorthodox new boss in her first 2 weeks on the job. Look, I don't know Bari Weiss. I've never interviewed her. She comes from the left. But they have made her in charge of the news division of CBS. And I think she, as someone who heads an organization and is new, and it's had problems, and it's just had to cut checks to a guy, and it's had to fire people over bias, it's cutting checks to people to settle lawsuits. I think as a new boss, it's pretty smart to come in and go, hey, gang, could we look under the hood here and talk about how we operate? And, of course, they all, what? How dare you? How we operate? Why, we're impeccable. We're untouchable. No one does the job we do. And Bari said, well, be that as it may, you've cost the company millions and millions of dollars in settlements and real embarrassment, and most of the country, when polled, thinks you're in the tank for one political side. So why would that be? Is their answer. Now, in 2025, in the media landscape in which we find ourselves, how long can you have that haughty arrogance, Eddie, and survive, do you think?
I would hope not much longer, but they've made it up to this point, man. I guess I would say until they're not the most watched news program on traditional TV.
Well, and what do they have leading into them?
Football.
I mean,
right.
Like put them on Tuesday night, and let's see how 60 Minutes does.
Yeah.
Tick, 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 tick. Yeah.
That's a good point.
They get tick, 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 tick after football, and it's promoted during football. Tick, tick, tick. I do it. I watch a football game, and then on Sunday, tick, 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 tick. All of a sudden, my damn TV is ticking. I wasn't even watching it, and they get credit for me watching them. I do it. All right. Anyway, good for Barry Weiss, shaking it up. I would have given anything to be in that room. Why do you think people think you suck? What? It's always a thrill when we can spend some time with a United States Senator, particularly the ones that are showing up for work. Dave McCormick is one of those guys and joins us this morning, Pennsylvania Senator. And listen, Senator, thanks again for showing up and voting and trying to keep the government open. I know you guys keep trying and holding votes to do it, and Democrats don't seem to want to help.
11 votes to open the government. The Democrats they're in a cul-de-sac. You know, the thing you don't want to get in the military is a cul-de-sac because they're stuck. The Schumer shutdown for solely political reasons is now trying to hold the government hostage to a series of reckless policy decisions, including undoing some of the great moves that were made in the big, beautiful bill. And it's really starting to bite. We have 100,000 federal employees in Pennsylvania that aren't getting paid. We have air traffic controllers, 14,000 of them not getting paid. Our military being paid for some period because of the moves President Trump made. Border Patrol not being paid. So that's a big deal. And this week, the SNAP benefits, which affect 2 million Pennsylvanians, are also not being paid. People living paycheck to paycheck in many cases. So this is a disastrous move on the part of the Democrats, and it's purely political. And I've said, and I will continue to say, I'll always vote to keep the government open. I don't think it makes sense to try to shut down the government as a way to get leverage. I'll say that no matter what party's in charge. I'm in the same position as my fellow senator from Pennsylvania, Senator Fetterman. He and I are strong on this point, and we got to get the government back opened and get back to the work of the people.
Just to be clear, and then I want to talk about Senator Fetterman, who's also constantly in the news. You guys want to pass a continuing resolution to keep spending at current levels. That's all, so that you can negotiate further. They don't want to do that. And why do you ultimately believe they don't? Now they're saying it's over Obamacare subsidies. Is that true? Is that something you guys were going to negotiate? They've been all over the map on why they won't just continue to extend the current spending.
As you said, it's a clean continuing resolution, meaning it's just a continuation of the current budget. To put this in perspective, this is standard fare. Under the Biden administration, we had 14 continuing resolutions while we can get through the appropriations process. Listen, there are real questions about health care that President Trump and Republicans have said we need to have a real conversation about through normal order, through the appropriations process. And I'm sure there will be a thoughtful conversation about that. I think people on the Republican side have different views on whether and how we should extend some of the additional subsidies that were put in place during COVID on Obamacare. I think what's clear to everybody is Obamacare failed to meet the test of lower cost, greater access, and better quality. So Obamacare is a failure. Now we're struggling with the failure. We can have that conversation, but we can't hold the government hostage by the Democrats in order to try to get their way. That's not the way this is going to work. And Republicans are going to stand strong on this. I'm 100% confident on that.
COVID-era spending, everyone should understand that. There are people being subsidized. Steve Moore and I talked about it on the show yesterday. There are people being subsidized for Obamacare that are effectively getting taxpayer-funded health insurance, and their household incomes are six figures. Can you confirm that?
Absolutely. Not only six figures, but $500,000-$600,000. So what's happened is that there was obviously subsidies in Obamacare when it was first put in place, but during COVID, those subsidies were expanded by President Biden. And now what the debate is around on whether those COVID era subsidies should continue, and if so, for how long. And there's no doubt that Obamacare has failed, and that these subsidies are meant to offset the cost of that failure. And we need to have a real debate around it. Healthcare is a big issue for Pennsylvanians. I don't doubt that. I'm going to be thoughtful and listen to all different sides of this. But make no mistake, this is based on the failure of Obamacare 15 years ago, and it's only gotten worse since.
Dave McCormick is with us, United States Senator from Pennsylvania. Your colleague, John Fetterman, you mentioned, I know you guys just did another town hall. People are very interested in you, too, because you seem to be one of the few pairs, Republican and Democrat, who can work together. You also happen to be from the same state, which is pretty unusual. It sure sounds like, and every story that I read seems to suggest they are coming after him, they being the Democrats, the progressives. They want rid of this guy. He's become a real problem for them on Israel, on keeping the government open, just on President Trump generally. He won't have anything to do with attacking President Trump and saying the things they say about him. Some have suggested that he would flip and become a Republican. I'm not quite convinced of that yet, but where do you see things headed?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to become a Republican. But what he is a very decent, authentic, forthright guy. And if you look at his voting record, he votes mostly with the Democrats. He's right. He's got a number of progressive views. He and I have a lot of disagreements. But what we agree on is the need to work together in every way we can to serve the people of Pennsylvania. And I find him to be a very decent and courageous man, because he's put himself out there and continues to say what he believes. And so, we'll see how it goes in terms of the future. But I think he's very talented and very capable. These attacks on his cognitive abilities, I can say with a lot of confidence. I know him well. I spend time with him, a good bit of time with him, and I think he's got a lot of ability, and I respect the way he's handled himself.
Back to the shutdown. Speaking of the Democrats, Shaheen was the most recent Democrat to sign on when you guys tried to pass sort of appropriations specific to military funding, I know. So that, if I'm doing the math, I think you brought 4 over now. You need 6, Fetterman being one of those 4. Do you see any of these Democrats finally folding on this thing? If or when? I mean, I know nobody knows. It's a guess. But, I mean, have you talked to any of your Democrat colleagues privately off the record about whether they are feeling the heat on this thing?
Well, a number have reached out. I mean, I think, Chuck Schumer used his inside voice, not his outside voice, his inside voice, when he literally said 3 or 4 days ago, every day that goes by, this gets better for us, meaning politically shutting down the government, which is, creating huge a burden on the American people, on the federal employees, on the military, really putting us at risk, is getting better. So I think there's a calculus that there's a political gain to be had here, and they're holding on tough. I know from my conversations with a number of moderate Democrats that they wish they could find a way out there in that cul-de-sac I mentioned earlier. My guess is there's nothing going to happen for the next week or so, maybe even the next couple of weeks. I think once we get past November, where people start to see the impact of those premiums, I think that'll be another talking in their health insurance. That'll be another talking point for the Democrats, and maybe there's a path through it there. I honestly think the constituents I talk to believe that this is a real disservice to the American people. And I think they mostly blame the Democrats, as they should, because Republicans are voting time and again to open the government back up.
I know we have not spoken since President Trump struck this initial peace deal between Hamas and Israel. Of course, we heard over the weekend that Hamas took some more pot shots. President Trump said they better knock it off or face elimination, extermination. When pressed on that, boots on the ground from military in our ranks, he said, no, absolutely not. He said some 59 other nations have signed up to help. Is that right? Do you think that's true, that ultimately if Hamas has to be dealt with, there are surrounding neighbors now that might get involved?
I do. I really, I think it was a remarkable demonstration of diplomacy and the use of American power to get us to this peace deal. And just think about it. Look at all the pieces, which each piece was criticized along the way, but the steadfast support for Israel in destroying Hamas, the willingness where no other president has gone before to deploy American military forces to take out the nuclear threat of Iran. At the same time, the willingness to talk tough to Prime Minister Netanyahu, the willingness to say we need to do more to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and then these deep relationships with many other countries in the region, the Gulf Arab states, Turkey and others. That combination of things allowed him to be a true peacemaker and someone who could credibly speak and apply pressure, American influence to get a deal done. So listen, this was an unthinkable thing under President Biden. It wouldn't even have imagined that he could have orchestrated the chessboard to get to this point. I mean, we got a lot of work to go in terms of getting through phase 2 of the peace agreement, but this was remarkable. And thank God these hostages are home. My wife and I visited Israel right after October 7th. We've spent many hours with those hostage families. We grieve still for those hostage families that haven't received the remains of those that were left behind, and that needs to be a steady focus. But this was a breathtaking, historic move that only could have happened under the leadership of Trump.
Senator McCormick, with about a minute to go, I know this is probably a big question for just a minute, but economically speaking, do you think China will finally blink here in this showdown with President Trump? I mean, economically, they're sort of the linchpin, aren't they, to seeing maybe prices start to really meaningfully come down here in the United States?
Yeah, it is the geopolitical and economic rival of our time. I think we have an enormous amount of leverage, but it has to be handled deftly and with care. And I was with Secretary Bessent the other day, and he said we can't have a murder-suicide. It's true that we actually have an enormous amount of influence, but it needs to be handled delicately, and that power needs to be applied carefully. The president is, I think, going to use all the economic tools that he can bring to bear to try to ensure we get a much fairer economic relationship with China. I'm optimistic we'll get there, but these guys are tough. They can withstand a lot of pain, and it's going to take a while. And I think, thank God, we've got Trump and Bessent and Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick and others leading the charge.
Well, I might lean on you if you don't mind. We'd love to have Secretary Bessent on the show, so I might lean on you to put in a good word for us. I know he's busy, but we'd love to talk to him.
He's a good man.
Senator McCormick, we're lucky to have him. Yeah. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, sir. We're lucky to have you in the United States Senate. Please stay in touch. We'll chat again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, Chicago. Watching you on the Salem News Channel this morning. Thanks for listening to The Answer in Chicago on AM 560. And if you're listening to your favorite radio station this morning, grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Also, thanks for catching the podcast. You might have missed a couple of stellar conversations. We played snippets of them here on this show. But if you missed Monday's podcast while I was away, they were two conversations you're going to love. Go to chrisstigall.com or wherever you stream podcasts. Look for The Chris Stigall Show. Incidentally, some of you have been nagging me. You said, Stigall, now that you're looking more svelte and trim and slim, you really ought to go get yourself some new photos. People are unhappy with the photo choices, Fast Eddie, on the what's known as artwork. I guess that's what they call it. When you download the podcast or you go on digital stuff to stream the show, they're not happy that the pictures that are displayed of me are from a few years ago. They want something updated to reflect my new svelte self. So I have scheduled a new photo shoot next week. And we will try to rectify the situation before year's end, Fast Eddie. I just wanted to let you know that because I know it's been of concern to many.
That's
sleepless nights.
That's all I get emails about, Chris. What I get emailed and called about the most is that your picture. It's just like, hey Eddie, is this post pre PhD weight loss? It's just like, aha. Yeah. Don't worry, Chris knows.
So we're on it. We finally scheduled it, and hopefully we will have new pictures to look at. I never got into this business thinking I would ever talk about this. How I look It was never of any interest to me. But it's 2025. Things change. So, new photos on the way. I hope we'll have that done before Christmas.
Just remember,
just so you know.
Just remember not to wear cologne in studio, too.
That's right.
It's TV now, Chris.
That's right. Little inside baseball for you folks, but yes, that's right. It's critical to always remember, never wear cologne around the team. Vice President Vance was in Israel yesterday. He's still there, obviously, on the ground, and continuing his tour of the Holy Land, overseeing implementation of President Trump's 20-point peace plan. In Jerusalem, Vice President Vance was asked about the foot-dragging by Hamas and some of the skirmish over the weekend. Here's what he had to say about that.
Our warning to Hamas is very straightforward. The terms of the 20-point plan that the president put out there is very clear. It's supported not just by Israel, but by all of our Gulf Arab friends. It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
Yeah, so even with that peace plan in place, there's still a lot of questions, and Israel still needs your support and your help. ChrisStigall.com is where you can do it. If you want to extend a hand to the good people of Israel, there's a bright red banner right atop my website, ChrisStigall.com. We've partnered with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews to let them know we have their back. We believe in their mission. We still believe in their mission, and we know this audience still believes in their mission, so your opportunity to help them in any way you can. A generous fellowship supporter has guaranteed he will double whatever you give. You give $1 today, he'll make it $2. You give 10, he'll make it 20, and so on. So if it's on your heart to give to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, I hope that it is. A couple of ways to do it. ChrisStigall.com and click on that red banner. And remember, everything you give is doubled instantly. Or you can call today. There's a number to call. Here's the 800 number. Grab a pencil. Ready? 800-982. People still use pencils? Pen? I don't know. Type it out on notes on your phone. However, 800-982-80. Grab a pencil. Who's got a pencil, Stigall? Nobody. 800-982. I don't know when was the last time you reached for a pencil. 800-982-8811. 800-982-8811. Now I'm going to hear from pencil people. Anyway, thanks a lot for your support. Okay, we'll talk with Ron Johnson about this. He's scheduled to join us shortly. House Judiciary Committee has now referred former CIA Director John Brennan, one of the most loathsome and treacherous, in my view, in the Biden-Obama era. They're now referring the Justice Department prosecute him. In a letter to Pam Bondi yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan referred former CIA Director John Brennan to the Justice Department for allegedly making false statements to Congress. Jordan accused Brennan of lying in his 2023 Judiciary Committee testimony by denying that the CIA used the Steele dossier in preparing the intelligence community assessment on Russian election interference and falsely claiming the CIA opposed including it. So again, this is all about President Trump running the first time, winning the first time, and Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the institutionalists inside DOJ and the CIA using a phony, we now know completely phony, paid for fake set of facts, circumstances that were used to secure surveillance warrants that were used in intelligence reports to try to sandbag Trump and his presidency ultimately when he won. The Steele dossier was a series of reports detailing Trump's alleged ties to Russia. It was compiled and delivered to the FBI in 2016. Jordan's letter from the House alleges subsequent investigations confirmed that the Clinton campaign and the DNC paid this guy who put this thing together, this opposition research, to inform about Trump's supposed ties to Russia, which resulted in the discredited dossier. So John Brennan has been recommended formally. Will that work? Will that happen? I don't know. We'll see what Ron Johnson has to say about it coming up. Hey, are you ready to drop serious weight before the new year? Yeah, come on. I'm talking about at least up to 20 pounds. I bet you can even lose more than that, but at least 20. PhD Weight Loss is the trick. They've cracked the code with their metabolic reset system. This is a science-backed method that gets your body to burn fat first. It's worked so well for me. I lost over 40 pounds in just 4 months' time. I feel fantastic. This program is so simple, guys. They tell you exactly when to eat. They tell you what to eat. I'm the kind of guy, just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it. Just tell me what to do. That's what they do. They customize the program to your body's needs and your specific schedule. PhD Weight Loss is the only program that guarantees success and your results. No starving, no endless workouts, no risky drugs. Just a smarter system that resets your metabolism. It shrinks that dangerous belly fat. It keeps the weight off, most importantly, for good. Now, when you call, if you do it today, they're going to waive your consultation fee. You'll get 2 extra weeks totally free, and they'll cover the cost of your food during the program. And just for booking, you're going to get Dr. Ashley Lucas's book, 5 Steps to Reset the Scale. It's quite a deal. But you got to do it quickly because this offer is only good until the end of October. Come on, lose weight with me. Call now. Mention the code New Year. Call 864-644-1900 and mention that code New Year. 864-644-1900 or visit the website myphdweightloss.com. 864-644-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. MyPillow is excited to announce they're having their biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you're not going to find anywhere else. MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88, any color, any style, and any size, even the king size. Regularly priced at $119.98, now only $29.88. Once they're gone, though, they're gone for good. My towels are finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regularly priced at $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time, and the only time, get their limited edition premium My Pillows made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queens starting at $17.98, kings at $19.98. And for a limited time, when you order over $100, you'll receive free shipping plus $100 in free digital gifts. 800-932-5056, promo code Chris, or use that promo code at mypillow.com, promo code Chris. It's great to be with you this morning. Live look at Milwaukee, Wisconsin on the Salem News Channel. Listening on great radio stations, hundreds of affiliates all over the country, including throughout the great state of Wisconsin. Your senator, you know him well. His first visit with us. I hope it's not the last. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin joins us right off the top of the hour. Senator, glad to have you this morning. Good morning.
Morning, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Hope you're doing well.
I am, thank you. And something occurred to me this morning, thanks in part to a listener who called in, and we started talking a little about Obamacare, and it dawned on me, is this a happy accident that Democrats have driven the discussion back to the nonsense subsidies of Obamacare? Did they accidentally box themselves in this discussion, or was this the intention a little bit from you Republicans to allow them to kind of implode? Because if we're relitigating this, I think the American people were clear 20 years ago nearly, and are still clear. They don't like subsidizing people making, $300,000, $400,000 a year for their health insurance.
I wish I could say our side was that smart to have this strategy, cooked up our sleeves here. But the fact of the matter is the Democrats have just been completely obstinate here in terms of their demands. All we're doing is saying, listen, we don't like government shutdowns. The House passed a continuing resolution, very clean, no gimmicks, no poison pills in there. Something Democrats have voted for over and over again. This is at President Biden's spending levels, but they're making a big issue about Obamacare. And Chris, the reason they are is they need to continue to enhance the subsidies to hide the fact that Obamacare is a complete failure. Insurance premiums aren't going up because the enhanced subsidies might expire. Insurance premiums are going up because of the faulty design of Obamacare, which has been largely masked because of the subsidies in Obamacare. And that's the first thing you have to understand. This is intentional misconception pushed by Democrats and their allies in the media that the subsidies go away. No, they don't. If you're at the poverty line, let's say you've got a family plan that costs $18,000 a year. Currently, with the enhanced subsidies, you pay $0. And that's led to all kinds of fraud, these no premium policies being people are being signed up without their knowledge, not making claims on it. But if the enhanced subsidies expire as the Democrats schedule them to expire, that same family would still get a $17,500 subsidy. But they'd be asked to pay $10 a week for health care. I don't think that's asking too much. But again, Democrats are making it sound like, these mean Republicans are going to be ripping healthcare away from the truly vulnerable. Nothing could be further from the truth. We're just asking people to put a little skin in the game so that we end the massive fraud. This is probably costing $20 to $30 billion per year. Premiums going right to the insurance company, commissions going right to unscrupulous brokers for policies that people don't even know and making no claims on. So this has to end. We cannot extend these enhanced subsidies because it perpetuates that massive fraud.
President Trump called a meeting with you Republican senators yesterday at the White House. I assume you were a part of that. And he said, don't back down. I'm not going to be held hostage, and none of you guys should be held hostage and extorted either.
I was glad to hear that. It was a very cordial meeting. It was really kind of a thank you for us all hanging together, passing the prevention of the massive tax increases is what I really call it. But very gracious, kind of showed us the new Rose Garden, which is a beautiful space now. It's now has paved with stone, so you can actually sit on it without sinking into the mud. So again,
can I ask you about that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but while we're talking about renovations to the White House, Senator, your colleague Elizabeth Warren and some other Democrats are absolutely apoplectic that President Trump, they've got the footage, you've seen it, the photos of him tearing some of the East Wing down because he's building this 90,000 square foot ballroom, and he's destroying the property. This isn't his house, it's your house. All the freaking out over the ballroom. Your reaction to that and the Rose Garden improvements?
Well, people like Senator Warren would be apoplectic about anything President Trump does. I was just presiding over the floor at 4 to 5 o'clock this morning, as they're wrangling on and complaining about the fact that we have a monarch now, which of course we don't have. So no, I mean there's Trump derangement syndrome that's being carried out right now. But no, the improvement to the Rose Garden is beautiful. Now it's actually a usable space. My guess is what he's going to be doing with the East Wing there, which has not been a particularly usable space. He's going to turn it into just a beautiful ballroom that generations can enjoy in the future.
There was a bit of news yesterday from the House side, Senator, and I wanted to ask you. Senator Ron Johnson joins us, by the way, from Wisconsin. The former CIA director. The House is now formally recommending that the Justice Department bring charges. You have the House Judiciary Committee said that they should bring prosecution against the CIA director for false testimony before them. Your reaction to John Brennan? I know you have studied this issue more than most in the Senate.
John Brennan is a criminal. He's a very bad person. If you just begin to understand the incalculable damage, people like John Brennan, led by President Obama, President Biden, but that whole cast of characters, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, all those groups, Clapper, the damage they have done to our democracy, the interference in our election. China and Russia could only dream of doing a fraction of the damage that these people have done. So no matter what he's charged with, no matter what he might be convicted of, the penalty just simply won't even come close to making up for the damage they've done to our democracy. But no, I'm glad that Chairman Jordan is referred for criminal prosecution. I hope we have a trial. I hope we lay out all the evidence. My concern is going to be a reasonably narrow indictment on line to Congress when the indictment should span the years of his service, and I put that in air quotes, disservice to this country.
President Trump says that, this is from the New York Times, they're saying demanding that the Justice Department pay him $230 million in compensation for the federal investigations into him. He says if I were to win $230 million, I'm going to sink it into a project, maybe the ballroom or something else. He knows it comes from taxpayers, but the president's pushing for, I think, something symbolic here, that he deserves retribution for the way he was treated?
Yeah, I heard a pretty interesting analysis of that. Just because President Trump, who is always a citizen, becomes president doesn't mean that he shouldn't be entitled to or be able to, claim what has been set up within the Justice Department to compensate victims of the Justice Department, of their weaponization of that agency. So no, I think as much as we, in many instances, we can point out the weaponization by the Biden administration, by people like John Brennan, and the harm they caused citizen Trump, I think that's a good thing. We need to end this weaponization of these agencies.
Do you feel good about, I always like to ask folks who've been concerned about this, as I know you have, and you've worked doggedly on the weaponization of the government. along with people like Senator Schmidt. Are you confident in Pam Bondi at DOJ, Kash Patel, FBI, Dan Bongino? Are you confident justice is being done, even if some of us maybe out here feel like we're not seeing it at the clip we would wish or hope?
Well, what I understand is the challenges they face. There's a deep state, and it's very pervasive, and the actors are still there. Yeah, there are a bunch of people that resigned, couldn't serve in a Trump administration. There are people they terminated, but there are a bunch of people that burrowed in. Partisan actors are going to do everything they can to sabotage this administration. It's happening at HHS with Bobby Kennedy. It's happening within the FBI and Department of Justice as well. By the way, we need more whistleblowers coming forward. People who love their agencies, that want to see integrity and credibility restored to them. So no, they literally do not have the personnel. They don't have the political appointees that can, try and discipline the deep state here. So I have a great deal of sympathy for the challenges they face. That's why we need to keep winning elections. We're not going to clean this all up in 4 years. There is no way. President Trump was sabotaged in his first administration. The deep state actors are trying to do it in the second administration. That's why he appointed fighters like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. But they need a lot more help. And again, it's hard to find people that they've just the lawfare against people like Judge Trupus, the lawyer, the judge who defended President Trump in Wisconsin. They're destroying that man through lawfare. And so it doesn't take many people that they make an example of, like Judge Trupus, to really make it other people reluctant to join the Trump administration for the 3 years, thinking the left will destroy my career as well.
And they've tried, but you've hung in there, and the people of Wisconsin have rewarded you. I got about 30 seconds. Senator, could I ask you, I know you can't predict it, but do you think the Democrats cave on this shutdown thing? It doesn't look like you Republicans are gonna. The president said hang tough. What do you think? How's this end?
We were all hoping after the I Hate America rallies that'd kind of take a little pressure off them. But they just, like I said, I was presiding all night long. They very rudely had all the Senate staff in there. They're yakking about something. They're complaining about something on the Senate floor. Maybe this will get it out of their system. Leader Thune is going to give them an opportunity again to vote for the clean House CR. Hopefully do that. If not, tomorrow we're going to vote on the Shutdown Fairness Act, which we've heard a lot of them do not want to vote on that. They sure don't want to vote no, because all that does is just pay people that are being forced to work. What could be more fair? So maybe this will come to a head today. Maybe we'll open up the government for a period of time here. Again, that CR only lasts till beginning of, right before Thanksgiving. And is this going to be, repeated? So the Eliminate Shutdown Act is probably the best thing we could pass. We need all Republicans, including our appropriators, on board with that act as well.
Senator, up late and stayed with us early this morning. Hope you can get some rest. Thanks for the fight out of Wisconsin. We're proud of the work you do. Honored to have you join us. Hope you'll come back, Senator Ron Johnson.
Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
That's a nice-looking fall picture on the Salem News Channel of Blue Mountain Lake, New York. Got an election coming up next month, New York. New York, Virginia, and New Jersey. Going to have some big November 4th elections. We're monitoring, of course, all of them. They say that they keep running this poll of Spamberger and Winsome Sears in Virginia, and I keep seeing it this morning that Sears is within 7 of Spamberger, but the poll they keep citing is with adults. Adults. Remember, always pay attention when you see polls, when the news leads with polling. Well, this is happening, that's happening, the poll's now showing. Always look for likely voters. Likely voters. That is, people that have a history of voting and are likely to turn out and do it again. Whenever you see, what's the standing rule on this show, Fast Eddie? Whenever you see a poll that samples adults, what are you supposed to do with it?
If you're reading any poll, the rules for this show is you go straight to the bottom and see who they sampled.
That's right. And if it's adults, if they take a sample of 800 adults, what does that tell us? A whole lot of nothing.
No, mouth breathers.
Mouth breathers. These are people that may vote, may not vote. This is walking out on the street in Somewhereville, Virginia, and saying, hey, fella.
Yeah.
Hey, are you paying attention to the gubernatorial race?
I guess.
Do you like Abigail Spanberger or Winsome Sears?
I guess Spamberger. Sounds delicious.
Okay, good. We'll put you down for Spamberger. That guy counts as one of those adults sampled. Now, he may not even vote. He doesn't even know when the election is. He's not going to show up and vote, but they've counted him, you see. And that's Be very cautious. So here's what that tells me, okay? If it's that close and she's supposed to run away with it with all of her money in Virginia, if it's that close amongst mouth-breathing adults who may or may not vote, I bet you it's even more narrow amongst likely voters. I'll bet you. And they say the same is true with Chitterelli and that woman who cheated her way through the military academy. Mickey Mouse, or what's her name? Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. Mickey.
Mickey Cheryl.
Cookie, I don't know. I don't know, Governor Mickey sounds wrong, doesn't it? You want a Governor Mickey? No, thank you, New Jersey. Come on. Mickey? Do you want your governor's name to be Mickey? Really?
No, no, of course not.
I mean, Pennsylvania's got a Josh, and that's obnoxious enough. A Mickey? Anyway, 855 Stigall is how you get in here today if you'd like to reach us. Pepe Le Pew, I told you her book tour is underway. She's out there on the different morning shows discussing her tenure there. It's been kind of interesting because she's not being very well received. She went on the CBS early morning show with Gayle King and pressed her on not knowing that the husk was a pudding-eating, shuffling, babbling, empty vessel who was clearly being controlled and didn't have control of his own faculties. Number 78 here.
Well, when we were on the Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him. And you saw nothing. For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. Yeah. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy.
I haven't missed her even a little bit. Bottom line, why is she even there? Why is she even on a show? Why did she even write a book that nobody's going to buy? Why was she ever White House press secretary? She admits it here in number 96. This is what it's all about. It's all that Democrats have ever been about. The only reason she had that job at which she was no good is this.
And for me, as a black woman, as a person who's also LGBTQ, I feel as if those communities that I am part of largely get taken for granted. And I see that today in groups that are being thrown under the bus for a short-term win. And it is not the big tent party that I loved and enjoyed and was part of and fought for. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I want to start a conversation I don't even know what she's talking about. The Democrats aren't the big tent party. They want to welcome men in who think they're women, lady. She thinks she's historic because she's black and gay. That's the reason she got the job, by the way. Well, I can name several black and gay people that could have done a far better job than she. The beautiful mountains of Tennessee. Makes me think of Dolly. How's Dolly? Have we heard any health updates on Dolly Parton? I didn't hear. I know she did a video. We played that here a couple weeks ago. She said, sorry my sister made you think I'm dying. I'm not dying. She said she's canceled some tours. But anyway, that's her home, I believe, there. Part of it, anyway. In Tennessee, looking there live on the Salem News Channel on the beautiful sunrise this morning. Wherever you happen to be, whether you're listening throughout the volunteer state, around the country on great radio stations, we're thrilled to have you along. And don't miss the podcast. Yes, another thing that we're working on is probably some additional content. If we can get to it by year's end, it may take us a little bit of a reprieve during the holidays to reshuffle the deck and figure out how to do this. But we're looking at some additional, maybe even live content. Fast Eddie and I are even flirting with an additional live hour. I mean, that's a big ask. That's a heavy lift, considering we do all that we do already, generously, out of our hearts. At no cost to you, 3 hours every day, 15 hours a week. But we're even thinking of adding a fourth hour. We've had that discussion, I want you to know. Yes, we're thinking about some Saturday extras, too.
It's not going to happen overnight, but we're working on it. All right. So just stay close, and you can go to chrisstigall.com for everything. Whether it's the Harumph Society, my 3 times a week newsletter, whether it's the podcast. And by the way, Monday's podcast, while I wasn't here, you may not have caught 2 really great conversations. One with the assistant, I guess he's assistant head coach, co-head coach, whatever you want to call him, of the Seattle Seahawks. Really nice man. Whether you're a football fan or not, you'll be very interested in the conversation with Leslie Frazier, who's the assistant head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We also talked to John Daniel Davidson of the Federalist on faith in the United States. His view of it is a bit different than the optimistic view that you're seeing about the surge in faith in the country. But anyway, I think you'll enjoy those conversations. Head to chrisstigall.com for every bit of it, whether it's the Harumph Society or the podcast, and you can get all of that. All right, the tiny little George Stephanopoulos, who had to pay Donald Trump $15 million. And remember, he was very bitter about that, so he had J.D. Vance on a couple of weeks ago and would not stop pestering him about that phony story about Tom Homan. You know, we're in the middle of a shutdown, and all tiny little George Stephanopoulos wanted to ask was about Tom Homan. And then he threw Vance off the show. He just cut him off and went to commercial. Trump says, I'm not dealing with ABC anymore at all. So, George, we also know that he has that weird sister who's also a sister. Remember her, Fast Eddie, that woman that surfaced out of nowhere and went on Tucker Carlson's show and said that she's a Catholic nun, but Jews are really rotten and Hamas isn't so bad. Remember that? That was weird.
That was very weird. Whose sister was that?
That was George Stephanopoulos' sister, I think. Check that. Check me on that, but I believe it was his sister. I know it was family for sure. I think sister. I think I'm right on that. So anyway, that just gives you a little background on who these people are. I mean, not to mention he's a Democrat operative, we all know, from the Clinton administration. But the Stephanopoulos are just bad people. And his entire M.O. is to make Trump look bad every day of the week, anytime he can. He brings on the Walmart CEO here in the United States, a guy named John Ferner. And they're doing an interview on Good Morning America. And Stephanopoulos is trying his level best to get the CEO of Walmart to dump on Trump. And it's not going well. Number 99 to kick it off here, Paulie.
We are really excited about what we have planned for this year at Thanksgiving, and I can't believe it's already that time of year, but this is a time of year when people are busy, they don't want to sacrifice quality, and we want to do all we can to help them celebrate the holiday any way they want, and we want to do it in a way that's very affordable with a lot of value. So I want to talk about a couple things with the Thanksgiving basket. You know, first, we started putting together this idea of having the entire basket easy to purchase, easy to assemble back in 2022. And this year, we will have the best prices on this basket we've had since the program started. We're down about 25% from last year, down about $14 for the basket, which puts us in a position where this basket is just under $4 a person when serving 10 people. Mm-hmm. So we have a great basket that has a mix of our great brands, like Butterball turkeys. Our turkey prices, George, are all the way back to what they were in 2019 at 97 cents a pound. So we're really excited about the progress. I was really impressed when the team brought me this. It was better than I expected. So we're looking forward to a great holiday season, and we want to help people celebrate any way they want and do it at a great Walmart price.
Damn it! That wasn't supposed to go that way. He was supposed to tell us how everything is rotten and worse. But what about the tariffs? Asks little Georgie. Surely the tariffs are pummeling you guys at Walmart. Double zeros here, Paulie. Surely the tariffs are killing you, right?
We're, as you know, selling a really wide variety of products, and about 2/3 of what we sell is either made, grown, or assembled here in the United States. And so our merchants have done a really nice job of mixing things out. You know, this basket is a great example of where we're keeping prices down. The other thing we do at Walmart, we have a program called Rollbacks, which we've had for decades. And as we stand here today, we get to talk today, we have about 7,000 items on Rollbacks, which is up about 1,000 from where we began the beginning of the year. So we are really focused on ensuring that across categories, opening price point, some of our better and best quality products, that we are delivering the prices that people expect. So we have this basket that's going to be exciting for Thanksgiving. And then in a few weeks, we'll be talking about the holiday event season that's coming up just before you know it.
son of a... Grr! Strike two. All right, last pitch. George Stephanopoulos, Good Morning America, with the CEO of Walmart. Let's try it one more time. Things suck out there, John. Why don't you hear me? Things are awful. People are ticked. Don't you agree, CEO of Walmart? Number one.
We see a customer that is very savvy. They're thinking about value. They love quality. And they've been very resilient. Our customers that are shopping with us both online and in store, they've been really resilient, but they are looking for value. So we are doing what we can to ensure that we're being as efficient as possible so that we can deliver low prices. And the big change from just even the year before, the two things that we've talked about today, I just reiterate, is the price of the basket being down 25%. That is a big number in terms of percent decrease. And then having over 7,000 items that we've taken the price down on key items, things like our 50-inch Vizio television that's selling for $214. Those are great values that will really come in handy as people get ready to celebrate the holiday season.
All right, this is clearly not going well. Get out of here. The CEO of Walmart, get off the show. Threw him off there as quickly as he threw off Vice President Vance. This is not what George wanted. So out there, they're trying anything they can to shift the conversation anyway. You know, Trump's destroying the White House. I was talking with Ron Johnson about that a minute ago. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, number two, trying to get you. Mrs. Clinton is also trying to get you stirred up, wound up that President Trump is destroying the White House.
So let me just say two things. First, these firings are illegal. They were illegal before the shutdown, and they are illegal after the shutdown. The shutdown gives Donald Trump no more power to lay people off.
We'll come back to that. Sorry about that. This is Elizabeth Warren saying she's hysterical about the executive branch cutting costs. I'm sorry, not the. She had freaked out earlier about that, so my fault. But anyway, she's always in a freak out mode, as Ron Johnson was just appropriately pointing out. The point is, Democrats are in hysterics over the ballroom edition, which you've probably seen, and. It's 90,000 square feet. It is not being paid for with a nickel of taxpayer dollars. It's all private. They're screeching he's destroying the historic halls of the White House. I posted on social media yesterday Hillary Clinton posting demolition photos, wailing, it's not his house, it's your house. Pocahontas there calling it desecration yesterday. It's all manufactured outrage, of course. Total deceit to mask their failures, and They're twisting routine construction into vandalism. It's their playbook. Cry destruction while their shutdown bleeds Americans, and completely ignore the fact that Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman did massive, massive renovations. In fact, total gutting of the White House. Truman did once upon a time. Trump's renovation of the White House is a metaphor, really, if you think about it. This ballroom project symbolizes a restoration of the presidency's purpose and prestige. Trump cares about the prestige of the office. This grand estate, consistently neglected by guys like Biden and Obama, just as they neglected the country. The decay was obvious. 40-year high inflation, open borders, rampant crime, disgraceful public schools, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, never-ending wars. That's the legacy of Obama and Biden. Donald Trump, a world-class builder, comes in and he improves the White House. He improves the country. He clears regulatory debris. He rebuilds diplomatic foundations. He reestablishes global prestige. Domestically, Trump's cleared 22,000 pages of regulatory debris in his first term. He's saved $220 billion roughly. He's creating jobs. His 2025 border security, including deportations, has rebuilt stability. Doge, targeting trillions in waste, exposing all the diverted USAID funds and NGO grift. And abroad, he's rebuilt global foundations with the Abraham Accords, including the Hamas ceasefire talks, Gaza rebuilding plans. He's holding China accountable. The ballroom, that 90,000 square foot ballroom, a venue in the 1942 East Wing, it triples the capacity for state dinners and summits. It's going to cost $200 to $250 million, and it's all going to be funded by private donation. And it will be complete by 2028. The new ballroom is diplomatic infrastructure, replacing tents that they've been using on White House grounds to host world leaders. It fosters the kind of relationships that tamed entities like Hamas Gatherings like these bridge divides. Ronald Reagan's dinners eased Cold War tensions. This is the greatest home field advantage ever, the White House, and Trump wants to make a beautiful ballroom to make bigger differences. It's the difference between establishing an important international relationship on a magnificent golf course or a local putt-putt. The ballroom is not just bricks and mortar. It's a foundation for global relations. It's a foundation for peace and agreements. He wants to host on our home turf. His presidency has its eyes fixed on the future, building a revitalized powerhouse with bold leadership and sound policies and diplomatic infrastructure. And Democrats reeling from their 2024 shutdown debacle are denouncing this progress, all of it. Screeching and screaming as though it's all bad, when in fact it's just the opposite. History will vindicate this builder who's not just rebuilding the White House, he's rebuilding the country, and he leaves successors a vastly improved White House and presidency and country. That will be Donald Trump's legacy. Morning, Louisville. Good to be with you in beautiful Kentucky. Boy, I tell you what, more or less across the country, at the risk of sounding like a meteorologist here, sorry if it's rainy where you are, but it looks like everybody's enjoying some really beautiful weather today. We're not seeing many of our cameras stationed all over the country that don't have beautiful weather today. I hope you are off to a beautiful start for your day. Thanks for listening. Whether you're on great radio stations throughout Kentucky and around the country, whether you watch on the Salem News Channel, get the app. It's free. You can do that. Hope that you do. Homes with Trump signs last year that were caught up in the storms in the South. Passed over by FEMA for politics. It was speculated upon. It was, in one instance, one whistleblower said as much, and now Matt Taibbi, the journalist, has written this exclusive. FEMA workers improperly collected data about politics of disaster victims. Last November 8th, on the Saturday after Election Day, one of the more bizarre postscripts to Donald Trump's re-election emerged in the form of FEMA's decision to sideline one official accused of telling FEMA workers to avoid homes advertising Trump while canvassing for Hurricane Milton victims in Florida. The most painful confirmation came from the then FEMA administrator, Deanna Criswell, who testified after the election that the episode was an isolated incident as well as unacceptable and heartbreaking, suggesting there was a problem and it was limited to just one eventually terminated disaster survivor assistance crew leader. Well, Matt Taibbi goes on to say a year later, they're now releasing a review of that entire episode at Homeland Security and the broader issue of using disaster relief work to collect political intelligence reports on voters and the potential withholding of benefits from some with the wrong beliefs. The current administration has found more than just one isolated incident, unsurprisingly. More tellingly, DHS investigators found in a near exact parallel to trends in the pro-censorship programs under Biden, a lot of the political controversy surrounding FEMA aid grew out of the vague way in which the agency's Disaster Survivor Assistance Field Operations Guide was written. And to this, the Daily Signal, homes with Trump signs were passed over for federal disaster aid, and now the DOJ might step in. The Justice Department may be investigating the Biden administration's emergency response to employees who systemically avoided helping disaster survivors who displayed yard signs or flags supporting Donald Trump or the Second Amendment. No kings, right? No kings. Just bad people. I don't know what else to say about it. Bad people. Not that you need more evidence, since we're talking about failed White House press secretaries that are trying to cash in on their 15 minutes behind the podium. Inside Jen Psaki. So you've got Pepe Le Pew running around trying to sell a book that won't sell. By the way, these will be some of the lowest sales for books ever. Pepe Le Pew's book. Who's buying that garbage? Who wants to read what she has to write? I mean, that's not even toilet reading. Inside Jen Psaki, she cut bait early. She could see the writing on the wall. The old man was too much to spin, so she ran over to MSNBC. She now does a failing show in which she said this loathsome thing, number 8.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And that he's willing to do anything to get there. And that your whole iteration you just outlined, I mean, he's scarier in certain ways.
He's smarter.
In some ways. And he's young.
Yeah. And ambitious.
And agile in the sense that he is a chameleon who makes himself into whatever he thinks the audience wants to hear from him. Now, what's also true, though, is J.D. Vance is not, he's in some ways goodish on paper if you like what he believes in. I don't know. But I don't know that he can take the whole movement with him.
No way.
I don't think so either.
There's no riz.
It's got no riz, right?
None.
And he just is a little odd. And
Totally.
so Trump's odd in a different way.
Yeah, so they're the girls handicapping J.D. Vance's future political. Let's keep that clip handy for 3 years from now. That seems to be one of those that's going to be famously montaged. I have a funny feeling. He's got no riz. Okay. We'll see about that, girls. Caroline Leavitt firing back at Pepe Le Pew, number 12. She's having none of this suggestion that Biden was more available for the press than Trump is. Pepe Le Pew actually said that. Caroline, not having it.
Well, with all due respect to my predecessor, she is one of the main culprits of the greatest cover-up and scandal in American history. She took the podium every day and lied to the press about the incompetence of her boss. And on this book tour, she continues to lie. She said this past week that Joe Biden would still be up for the job if he had, God forbid, been reelected in November. She actually said this week as well on a podcast that Joe Biden did more press engagements than President Trump currently does now. Any person across the aisle can tell you that is a bald-faced lie. And I will just add, when you talk to the real journalists, not the ones who are actually activists that pose as journalists, but the people who actually care about truth, and there are some of those left in the White House press corps, I work with them every day, they will tell you the Trump White House is the most accessible and transparent White House ever. Not only does the president take questions from the press on a near daily basis, multiple times per day, as he did today, but we also provide truthful and accurate information about what this administration is doing.
Yep. And that's Caroline Leavitt. Boy, there you have it. Pepe Le Pew, Peppermint Patty, Caroline Leavitt. It's not even close. 3 women with distinctly different deliveries and distinctly different records, and only one of them with facts on her side, and does it like a surgeon. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.